Part 83. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 821. Chapter 821, Grasping the Wound and Pouring Salt on It. Lily looked at the scene and said in a panic, "It's all my fault. I was negligent. Lily has been serving the Queen personally for decades, how could she not be able to do even this little thing well?" Moreover, just as Yunya came to the door, Lily came in and spread the word. Fan Kinjao thought, maybe Lily just brought 2 soup cups in the door on purpose. People from the royal family don't need anything, but they must have face. This is clearly trying to chase Yunya away. Queen Zhen 11 also looked at Yunya and said with a smile, "Kinjao is a child who pays too much attention to rules. She always sends someone to report before entering the palace. Seeing that she is weak, I sent someone to prepare a meal in the small kitchen in advance. There's some soup in it. The queen is the queen, she can scold Yunya for coming here rashly and not understanding the rules, and at the same time she has a smile on her face, as if everything is the listener's carelessness. If this matter had been left to concubine Yu, she would have flipped the table and left long ago, but Yunya could still sit on the chair safely, and she did not forget to echo the Empress. What the Empress said is, "Concubine. It looks a bit weak and needs to be replenished." Queen Zhengzi. This face is really much thicker than that of her mother-in-law. Seeing Yunya's determined look, Fan Kinjao knew in his heart that just targeting it wouldn't work, so he picked up the soup cup and said, "Since it is the queen's wish, my daughter-in-law will accept the order." Queen Zhen 11 watched Fan Qingyuan pick up the soup cup, then she lowered her head and started drinking the soup. Yunyu obviously refused to leave. What could she do without drinking the soup? Did she really have to sweep people away with a broom and beat them out? Fan Kinjao scooped up a tablespoon of Saijianza soup and slowly put it into his mouth. Although the soup was made from Atractylodes macrocephala, Poria cocos, ginseng, and Zhiganko, the heat was well controlled and it did not have the bitterness of traditional Chinese medicine. On the contrary, it melts in your mouth and warms your heart. It is estimated that the soup has been cooked in the small kitchen for a long time, and Lily brought out 2 cups specifically to stimulate Yunyu. Yunyu watched Fan Kinjao and the queen drinking soup. She would be lying if she said she wasn't embarrassed. What Yunyu couldn't understand the most was that Fan Kinjao's dining etiquette was so good that it was hard to find fault with it. Yunyu couldn't find fun even if she wanted to watch jokes. It looked like she had been kicked out of the house since she was a child. A wild child who grew up wandering outside. My daughter-in-law heard that the envoy from the Donglan kingdom was coming, and I'm afraid that the palace will be lively again during this period. Fan Kinjao, who was drinking soup, suddenly said. Yunyu's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. Queen Zhen 11 did not expect that Fan Kinjao would suddenly mention the Donglan kingdom, but she still nodded and said, "The Donglan kingdom has always had a good relationship with us in Ziliang. This time, the Donglan kingdom specially sent the 6th prince to accompany us, which shows that we have a good relationship with the Donglan kingdom. We in Ziliang attach great importance to it, but it's a pity for the 6th prince, alas. Why is the queen mother so melancholy all of a sudden?" Fan Kinjao had only heard about the 6th prince of Donglan kingdom from Yan Hanbei. He didn't ask in detail at that time, so he didn't know the reason for the queen mother's sigh. Speaking of which, the 6th prince of the Donglan kingdom also had a hard life. I heard that when his mother-in-law was pregnant with him, she was so weak that she could only rely on soup and medicine to survive. Later, she passed away after giving birth to the 6th prince. The 6th prince has finally been raised, but he always looks innocent. Innocent appearance. I'm afraid this is just a nice thing to say. Fan Kinjao thought about it carefully. Since the 6th prince of the Donglan kingdom could propose marriage in person, it meant that he had already performed the crowning ceremony, but he still looked innocent. You are obviously an idiot. Fan Kinjao paused and then said, "What can my daughter-in-law do to help my father's worries?" Yunyu subconsciously tightened the handkerchief in her hand. Which princess would dare to have such a tone and dare to say that she would help the emperor share his worries? Normally, as a royal daughter-in-law, she would not even have a chance to show up, but Fan Qingyao just can and dares to say this. Just don't be too arrogant. What's hateful is that Fan Qingyao has crazy capital. Not only is she the crown prince of Ziliang, her medical skills are so superb that even the emperor praised her. If Fan Qingyao really cured the stupidity of the sixth prince of Dongling Kingdom, it would be a great honor for the country. Some time ago, your father specifically asked the judge to check the pulse of the sixth prince of Dongling Kingdom. The judge said that the stupidity of the sixth prince of Dongling Kingdom was brought out from his mother's womb. There may be a possibility of cure, but I'm afraid it will take longer, maybe a year and a half, or maybe 30 or 50 years. Queen Zhen 11 sighed. It was really difficult for the children of the royal family to grow up safely. Everyone has his own destiny. God will never treat a person badly all the time. If he owes something, he will definitely make up for it. Fan Qingyao knew that if his master said this, he would be afraid that the sixth prince of Dongling Kingdom would. It is basically impossible to cure the disease. Many things that are brought out from the mother's womb, no matter how much you try to make up for them the day after tomorrow, it will be too late. Yunyu felt her right eyelid twitch heavily when she heard Fan Qingyao's words. What does it mean to make up for any shortcomings? After experiencing the last marriage proposal in public by the sixth prince of the Dongling Kingdom, Yunyu would still be awakened by nightmares even if she slept now. If Fan Qingyao said such words at this time, could he be implying that she would be married to the Dongling Kingdom? God cannot compensate that fool. The more Yunyu thought about it, the darker her face became. Most likely, she couldn't find a reason even if she wanted to question it, because Fan Qingyao was not there when Donglin entered the palace, so how could he know about the marriage proposal? Empress Zhen 11 caught a glimpse of Yunyu's face that could no longer hold a smile, and finally understood Fan Qingyao's intention. This was clearly to rub salt into Yunyu's wounds. Although it was a bit unreasonable, Queen Zhen 11 was still willing to follow suit. Speaking of which, the sixth prince from Dongling Kingdom has good taste. He even proposed marriage to Yunyu last time. Yunyu. Which pot should not be opened? Fan Qingyao pretended to be surprised and looked at Yunyu. I didn't know this happened, but Princess Yunyu is gentle, virtuous, well-educated, and beautiful. It is normal for her to be loved by others. The Queen Mother did say that yes, the sixth prince of Dongling Kingdom is a visionary. Yunyu felt that Fan Qingyao was gloating about his misfortune, but Fan Qingyao's smile and sincerity made her unable to find any clues. This time Yunyu really couldn't sit still. She suppressed the urge to stand up and rush over to tear Fan Qingyao's smiling face apart. She forced herself to calm down and said, now that the fifth emperor brother is still in a coma, where can I be? I'm thinking about my own affairs. I wonder if the crown princess has visited the fifth emperor's brother recently. Fan Qingyao finally became serious when he heard the words fifth prince. Could it be that the reason why Yunyu has not left for so long is related to the fifth prince? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 822. Chapter 822 is the poison given by Yunyu. The fifth prince's body still needs to be cultivated, but it has indeed improved during this period. Just before entering the palace, I went to the military and horse department to visit the fifth prince. However, the fifth prince seemed to have some influence on the drugs in his body during this period. Rejection, it seems that the prescription needs to be changed, Fan Qingyao said calmly. Speaking of which, I often go to the military and horse division to visit the fifth prince. It's a coincidence that I also went to the military and horse division today. Seeing the unconscious fifth prince, my heart is always heavy. Yunyu lowered her eyes slightly, and a faint blush appeared in her eyes. If she didn't know better, she might have thought that she and the fifth prince were biological. Seeing this, Fan Kinjao stood up and handed over his handkerchief. Princess Yunyu, be careful of yourself. Worrying the crown princess, Yunyu smiled apologetically and reached out to take the handkerchief handed over by Fan Kinjao. As she raised her hand, a faint cool air rushed towards her. Although it is very light, it is enough to make Fan Kinjao's eyes darken. Now, she finally knew the reason why Yunyu came to Fenji Palace today. In total, Lao Wu has been in a coma for a while. Fortunately, you are carrying Queen Zhen 11 said with a smile. Yunyu stood up and saluted. This is what I should do. It's getting late, so I should retire. I'll come back to visit my mother and queen when I have time. Go. Queen Zhen 11 nodded with a smile. She waited until Yunyu's figure completely disappeared in the yard before the smile on her face completely disappeared. Li Beihe personally escorted Yunyu out of Fenji Palace. After watching the person go away, she returned to the palace and took out the two maids who had just delivered the soup cups. Fan Kinjao looked in the direction of the door for a long time without regaining consciousness. When there was no one else in the palace, he spoke again. The Queen Mother asked me just now if this matter has something to do with the third prince. Empress Zhen 11 nodded. She did have doubts, but when she saw that Fan Kinjao didn't answer her affirmatively, she didn't dig deeper. But this time, Fan Kinjao turned to look at the queen and said, my daughter-in-law was not sure just now, but now she is absolutely sure that the fifth prince's poison was caused by Yunyu. Zhen 11 was stunned. Are you sure? Fan Kinjao nodded. My daughter-in-law always felt that it was very strange that the fifth prince was poisoned again. Before leaving, she sprinkled some common geranium pollen on the fifth prince's body. These geranium flower powders may seem inconspicuous, but they can be blended with any medicine, and the poison in the fifth prince's body has a faint fragrance. Once the geranium pollen is blended with it, a faint cool fragrance will appear. This smell is exactly what Yunyu smelled just now. No wonder Yunyu came to Fenji Palace suddenly. I am afraid that she has already received the news of your entry into the palace, so she came here personally to find out what you said. Queen Zhengzi's eyes also turned cold. Yunyu is indeed a smart person. She told Fan Kinjao openly that she had visited the fifth prince. If she were a normal person, she would never associate Yunyu with the fifth prince's poisoning. After all, there is no one in this world who is so stupid that he doesn't do it to himself. But Yunyu had no idea that Fan Kinjao would do anything to the fifth prince. Although we still don't know the cause of the whole thing, since all this is related to Yunyu, I'm afraid the third prince's hands and feet will not be too clean. It's probably inappropriate to keep the fifth prince in the military and horse division. Fan Kinjao left the fifth prince in the military and horse division to recuperate from his injuries. He was betting that if the matter had something to do with Bailey Rongs would not dare to act rashly. After all, if something happened to the fifth prince under his nose, he would have the right to do so. Inseparable relationship. But Fan Kinjao really didn't expect that Bailey Rongs would be so courageous. This time Yunyu poisoned the fifth prince. If she hadn't discovered it in time, she would have fallen asleep like this. Even if things got serious and he died, she would have failed to save the fifth prince and instead followed the soldiers. Ma-Si has nothing to do with it. If Prajna keeps the fifth prince in the military and horse division like this, it is obviously a sheep entering the tiger's mouth. You are right. It is true that Lao Wu cannot be allowed to stay in the military and horse division. However, the fact that Lao Wu was allowed to recuperate in the military and horse division has alarmed the emperor. If there is no good reason, not only will the emperor be dissatisfied, but also I'm afraid it will scare the snake. Queen Zhen 11 didn't expect that the third prince and Yunyu could be so ruthless. It was obvious that they didn't want Lao Wu to wake up again. Furthermore, since the third prince dared to allow Yunyu to take action, Yunyu was able to come to Fenji Palace to find out the truth afterwards, which shows that they have made complete preparations. I'm afraid it won't be easy to get the fifth prince out of the Bingma division. Fan Kinjao looked at Queen Zhen 11's frown. narrowed her eyes slightly and said, "The third prince and Yunyu are so bold and reckless. They are betting that we have no reason, so we only need to find a reason. As long as there is an honest reason for the fifth prince to leave the Bingma division, it will be difficult to retain him even if the King of Heaven comes." Queen Zhen 11 glanced at Fan Qingjao and said, "What you said is not unreasonable, but this matter is too risky. Now that Feng Ming is not in the main city, if something happens to you again, how will I explain to him? The queen mother is worried and the daughter-in-law understands in her heart, but the fifth prince can't wait any longer. It is precisely because Bailey Feng Ming is not in the main city that she has to protect everything around him. If she can't even do this little thing, then she didn't have the shame to see him again." Queen Zhen 11 looked at the determination in Fan Qingjiao's eyes and sighed after a while, "Then I'll do what you said. The children have grown up and have their own ideas. Although they can't avoid worrying, Queen Zhengzi also understands that she has to let go when it's time to let go. Even if she really has her heart, how long can she stay with them? If she wants to be in this troubled world, they can only rely on themselves to brave the rapids." Fan Qingjao stood up gratefully and knelt down before the empress to leave. Then he left the palace and went straight to the Prince Heshuo's mansion. I still remember that when the previous Prince Heshuo was young, he was assigned to serve in the army and horse department for a period of time. It was during that time that Prince Heshuo served well in the army and horse department, so he was targeted by Bailey wrongs. However, even if there was no prince in the previous life, Prince Heshuo was never pulled into his ship by Bailey wrongs. At that time, Fan Qingjao often heard Bailey wrongs complain about this matter, so she had an impression. At that time, Fan Qingjao was so stupid that he only followed Bailey wrongs in cursing Prince Heshuo for being ungrateful. Thinking about it now, he was really stupid. It was Princess Heshuo who was coaxing the children in the palace when she heard Fan Qingjao coming and quickly came out to greet her with her young prince. Prince Jing Chuan was very affectionate to Fan Qingjao and took the initiative to say hello when he saw people. "Sister Qingjao." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 823. Chapter 823, Asking the Adoptive Father for Help. Under the sun, Crown Prince Jing Chuan wears an emerald green robe. His hair, which has not yet fully grown, is on his head and fixed with jade hoops. He looks well informed and sensible at a young age. If he grows up, he will probably attract more attention. A woman's heart. Fan Qingjao touched Prince King Chuan's tender face and said, "Didn't you call me sister last time? Both my mother and father told me that although Sister Qingjao is not my biological child, she is still me. My only sister in this world. She is the only one. Whether she is related by blood or not, what does it matter? In King Chuan's heart, Sister Qingjao is my biological sister." Although she spoke awkwardly, her palm-sized face was full of serious expression. Fan Qingjao really couldn't put it down for the crown prince of Qing Chuan. He bent down and picked him up, and walked towards the mansion with the princess of Heshuo County. Prince Qing Chuan seemed a little shy, his little face was red, and he was silent in Fan Qingjiao's arms. Fan Qingjao followed Princess Heshuo into the backyard. Seeing that there were no other servants around, he explained his purpose of coming. Who would have thought that Princess Heshuo was not in the house at this moment, but Princess Heshuo thought this man was coming back soon, so he left Fan Qingjao behind. At this time, Prince Heshuo was still in the palace. Although all the missing people had been found, the thieves were never caught. Prince Heshuo was a person who did not rub sand in his eyes, and he happened to meet the commander of the army and horses division again. If you are kind-hearted, you must question one or two. Who would have thought that Wan Shanshan was glib and rambling, as if he was doing Tai Chi with him? In the end, He even ridiculed Heshuo County Prince that he should take good care of himself in the palace when he is old, and stop meddling in his own business all day long. Prince Heshuo was a military commander, and all his military exploits came from the battlefield. Nowadays, all countries are at peace. Although he holds the title of a prince, he has no real power. Wan Qinshan's words are indeed disgusting, but Prince Heshuo is indeed there is nothing you can do to get people. He left the palace with a dark face, but as soon as he entered the door, he saw Fan Qinjiao holding his son and chatting with his wife. As for Prince Jing Chuan, who had always looked like a young adult, his face was as red as a ripe tomato. Heshuo County Prince. What's the situation? As soon as the princess of Heshuo County saw the person coming back, she stood up and said, "Little Qinjiao has been waiting for you here for half an hour. Why did you come back?" Of course Prince Heshuo couldn't talk about the fact that Wan Shanshan was reprimanded in the palace, but thinking that Fan Qinjiao would come at this time, he might have something important to do, so when Princess Heshuo asked whether to go to Huading or go when entering the study room, Prince Heshuo immediately chose the study room. Prince Jing Chuan looked at his sister who left with his father, pulled his mother's sleeves, and said with a strange expression, "Mother, the teacher said that it is virtue for a woman to have no talent, but how can Sister Qinjiao be like her father?" Discussion. The princess of Heshuo County touched her son's little head and said, "It's not that women are virtuous if they don't have talent, but most of the ladies in our main city have been pampered and raised in their boudoir since they were young. How can they know anything important? But your sister Qinjiao is different from them. Your sister Qinjiao is born to be able to do great things. It's a pity that there will never be another Fan Qinjiao in this world." Fan Qinjiao followed Prince Heshuo into the study and directly explained the purpose of his visit. Time was precious now, and the fifth prince's life was still hanging in the balance, so he really couldn't waste any time. The prince of Heshuo County guessed that Fan Qinjiao must be in trouble, but he didn't expect it to be such a big deal. The body that had just been sitting on the chair immediately stood up again. Obviously very angry. Yunyu is so brave. Prince Heshuo was really angry. He knew Yunyu was smart when he was young. It was a pity that Yunyu gave birth to a girl. Later, Yunyu went out to study with his teacher. I am also thankful that it is better to gain experience than to be trapped in a palace. Can you learn this just by going out and studying? For their own benefit, they are even willing to do things such as harming their brothers and sisters. Yunyu was able to poison the fifth prince after the incident, which shows that she extremely did not want the fifth prince to wake up. I was afraid that the fifth prince was injured in the first place, and it had something to do with the third prince. Prince Heshuo looked at Fan Qinjiao for a long time before sighing and saying, "I thought this was very strange at the beginning. Those thieves were so huge in number, but they were able to disappear without a trace in an instant, leaving the soldiers and horses alone. After searching all night, we couldn't find any clues. Now it seems that the Bingma division can't find it. I'm afraid they just don't want to find out." Although the third prince did not occupy the highest position in the Bingma division, he was born with a natural talent. With a talkative mouth, he is also good at winning people's hearts and taking advantage of human nature. Now Wan Shanshan of the Bingma division has already worn a pair of trousers with the third prince and placed himself in the entire Bingma division. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is the treasure of the third prince. Fan Qinjiao said, "Although we still don't know the motives of the third prince, but the fifth prince can no longer stay in the military and horse division." Prince Heshuo frowned, "What do you mean?" Fan Qinjiao smiled coldly. The third prince thought that since the fifth prince stayed in the military and horse division to recuperate, he would become his slave. But since he can be cunning and cunning, I can return it to him in the same way. But in this matter, I still need help from my adoptive father. Princess Heshuo always doesn't like to mince words. When you have an idea, just say it. I want to borrow some people from my adoptive father. Borrow someone. The coldness on Fan Qinjiao's lips deepened. Yes, the 5th Prince stayed in the military and horse division to recuperate because the military and horse division was heavily guarded, which was conducive to the 5th Prince's safety. But once the safe place is no longer safe, let him, there is no reason for anyone to keep the 5th Prince in the military and horse division. Heshuo County Prince. He seemed to have a rough idea of what it meant. In normal times, Prince Heshuo would not agree. He looks down on the 3rd Prince because the 3rd Prince can do whatever it takes to achieve his own goals. But now, what is the difference between Fan Kinjao's idea and that of a bandit? The dog bites you, and you bite the dog. This is clearly the behavior of bandits. But as soon as he thought of Wan Qinshan's despised virtue, Prince Heshuo wished he could rush to the army and horse department right now and challenge Wan Shanshan to a duel. Leave this matter to me. Just go back and wait for news. Prince Heshuo suppressed the anger in his heart and looked at Fan Kinjao. Fan Kinjao was stunned. The character of her adoptive father is the same as that of her maternal grandfather. They are both upright and upright people. She had already thought of her words and was just waiting for how to persuade her adoptive father when he refused. Where did she think of? You just agreed? Please ask the adoptive father to wait until the time of his son's death before taking action. Even though Prince Heshuo didn't understand, he still nodded, I understand. Fan Kinjao was really afraid that his adoptive father would regret it, so he didn't even have time to say goodbye to his adoptive mother when he left the study, and immediately got on the carriage back home. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 824. Chapter 824. If you can push it down, I can lift it up. After Fan Kinjao left, Prince Heshuo didn't even have time to have dinner, so he found a few trustworthy men to come to the study to discuss matters. Facing the map of the army and horses division spread out on the desk, Prince Heshuo was used to holding it. The big hand holding the weapon clicked on it. Several subordinates. I'm really afraid that the county prince won't be able to bear it anymore and eats the map. Prince Heshuo had nowhere to vent his pent-up anger. Now that he finally found an outlet, he couldn't miss it. He finally understood and wanted to fight with those who were practicing Tai Chi. If you can't play your cards according to normal routines, you have to do what Xiao Qinjiao said and use dirty tricks. Just thinking about Wan Qinshan's old, shriveled face afterwards made Prince Heshuo very relieved. In this case, what is there to hesitate about? Her mother ***. Fan Kinjao went directly to the front yard after returning to Hua's house. During dinner, Hua Yaoding was obviously a little dull. Apparently, like Prince Heshuo, he would not feel at ease until he caught the thieves. Fan Kinjao noticed her grandfather's boredom but didn't speak. She just ate in silence. She could ask her adoptive father to help, but she didn't necessarily convince her grandfather to accept her method. But for such an upright person, she was forced to do so many unreasonable things in her last life. Now if it were to happen again, how could Fan Kinjao let his grandfather get contaminated again? Just let her do the shady things. Sir, you should eat some vegetables. Tao Yuxian saw Hua Yaoding eating rice absent-mindedly. He couldn't stand it anymore, so he put a bamboo shoot with chopsticks on the plate in front of him. Hua Yaoding wanted to smile at his wife, but there was something wrong in his heart, and he couldn't smile no matter what. Fan Kinjao silently looked at his grandfather's forced smile and silently ate the food in the bowl. Don't worry, Bailey Rongs will soon show an expression even more uncomfortable than his grandfather's. Fan Kinjao was right. Bailey Rongs, who was still sleeping that night, was awakened by the banging on the door. The person who came to deliver the message was frightened at the door and said, "The third prince is in trouble, something happened to the army and horse department." Hearing that something happened in the Bingma division, Bailey Rongs couldn't sleep. He immediately put on his clothes and hurriedly got into the carriage. When he got off the carriage, he saw that the Bingma division was already in a mess. Wan Shanshang was sitting in the mess, holding his bruised old face and groaning. It was said that he was complaining about his bad luck. Who told him to live close to the soldiers and horses division? He came here when he heard something happened. He followed the thieves wherever he thought. Bumped together. The results can be imagined. Wan Shanshan was pressed to the ground and rubbed for a while. What the is going on? Bailey Rongs asked everyone present angrily. Everyone was so frightened by the angry rebuke that they lowered their heads and did not even dare to speak out. In desperation, Wan Shanshan could only cover his face and come over and said, "I heard from the people on duty that a few people broke into the army and horse division at night. Those people were too arrogant. They smashed things and beat people when they saw them. Those few the night watchman has long since passed out." Wan kind-hearted people feel itchy with hatred whenever they think about how arrogant those people are. But at this moment, Bailey Rongs had no time to care about Wan Shanshan. He quickly asked someone to carefully check the troops and horses. Seeing that the third prince looked so unhappy, the guards dared not delay even a moment. They quickly checked everything, except for those who were miscellaneous. Yes, nothing was lost. Bailey Rongs looked at the list in his hand with a gloomy expression. If not to steal things, why did those people come? This matter must be reported to the emperor. "I will enter the palace in person at dawn," Wan Shanshan said with his face covered when Bailey Rongs didn't speak. Even if the soldiers and horses department didn't have anything valuable, it wouldn't be a big deal to be intruded on like this. It's a small matter, and if you want to catch those people, you must not hide it. No, Bailey Rongs denied it. Wan Shanshan was startled and said, "Your Highness, this matter is no small matter. I won't report it if I don't." "There is no objection to this matter." Bailey Rongs not only interrupted Wan Shanshan's words, but also got up and walked to the yard, gathering the people from the military and horse department together, threatening and tempting everyone, "Don't let anything happen tonight." Bailey Rongs was able to confidently and boldly let Yunyu poison the fifth prince because he was sure to leave the person here. As long as the fifth prince never woke up, no one would know that he was the one who instigated the trouble on the 15th. If it was reported that the soldiers and horses were being invaded by Ye at this time, what reason would he have to keep the people here? Bailey Rongs was following the fifth prince that day and saw with his own eyes that the fifth prince picked up the purse he dropped. In a hurry, he attacked the fifth prince secretly, but afterwards he searched the fifth prince's body and couldn't find it. Purse. Later Bailey Rongs thought, so what if the fifth prince picked up his purse? The fifth prince did not see with his own eyes that he secretly helped the thieves escape on the 15th, and he was also watching with his mother and concubine that day. Ice lamp. It seems that he was too anxious at the time and did not turn his head. Instead, the fifth prince saw him and launched a sneak attack. But once he did it, there was no turning back. No matter what he did now, he could not let the fifth prince wake up again. Today's army and horse division has long been under the control of Bailey Rongs, and Wan Shanshan is just a puppet. Faced with the third prince's death order, the top and bottom of the army and horse division naturally obey his words. Ning Tian, who had been hiding near the Bingma division, waited for a long time but did not see any movement from the Bingma division. He could only quickly return to the house and inform Fan Qinjiao of the matter. It seems that the military and horse division has suppressed the matter. Fan Qinjiao was not surprised at all after hearing this. In other words, she had already thought that Bailey Rongs would do this, otherwise she would not let Ning Tian go and watch, let alone let the adoptive father take action after his son. Do you really think that if something is a sure thing, it can be suppressed just by pressing it? How can it be? Fan Qinjiao called Ninggan in and said, "Let's spread the news." The adoptive father took action only after the instructions she mentioned. Counting the time of the trouble and the time after Bailey Rongs arrived, by the time Ninggan went to deliver the news, the people happened to be getting up early. The morning in the main city is still very lively. The breakfast stalls have been set up early. People who got up early have come out to find stalls to have breakfast. The beggars on Temple Street are also awake and ready to ask for alms. At this time, Ning Ning Han spread the news and immediately attracted the attention of the people. Bailey Rongs deliberately wanted to suppress the night invasion of the Bingma division, but the mess inside and outside the door could not be cleaned up in a short while. The common people who heard the rumors came over to take a look. You can see at a glance that the Bingma division has not sorted out the mess. At this time, the news that the Bingma division was broken into at night was immediately reported. No matter how much Bailey Rongs wanted to suppress him, he couldn't do it. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 825. Chapter 825 30-year-old baby. Now it's better, the whole main city knows about it. Fan Kinjao struck while the iron was hot and asked Ningan to release the news that the fifth prince was recovering from his injuries in the soldiers and horses division. Since it's messy, the more messy it is, the better. The people in the main city had known for a long time that the fifth prince was injured while investigating the case. However, the people did not know that the fifth prince had been recuperating in the army and horse department. As a result, the army and horse department, which had not caused trouble for 800 years, was someone broke into me at night, so what if this wasn't the negligence of the Bingma division? To go a step further, the military and horse division didn't take the fifth prince seriously at all. Had it not been for the lack of defense by the soldiers and horses division, how could they have been broken into at night without incident? Once conspiracy theories are stirred up, they will only develop in a more conspiratorial direction. The people then thought that the third prince was serving in the army and horse department, and the fifth prince was recovering from his injuries in the army and horse department. Is it possible that the third prince deliberately neglected defense and wanted to kill the fifth prince? Or, perhaps, those thieves were the third prince himself. Directed and acted by himself, the purpose is to take the life of the fifth prince. Although the common people have never experienced royal power struggles, they have never eaten pork or seen pigs running away. The struggle between princes has always been to kill one and lose the other. For a time, the people came to the gate of the Army and Horses Division spontaneously and threatened that the Army and Horses Division was ruthlessly killing people. Bailey Rongs, who was inexplicably put into a big pot, his face turned black to ashes at the bottom of the pot. Now, whether Bailey Rongs intends to kill the fifth prince or is unintentionally implicated, it is unclear. Knowing that this matter is no longer something he can do to turn the tide, Bailey Rongs can only go to the palace to take this matter. The matter was reported to the police. In the palace, Queen Zhen 11 had heard the commotion outside early in the morning, so she asked Lily to invite people to have breakfast while the emperor had gone to court. Emperor Yongchang calculated that it was true that he had not shown up to the queen for a long time. Anyway, it was just for a meal, so he did not refuse. Who would have thought that as soon as he stepped into Fenji Palace, his buttocks were still not hot, and he heard the soldiers and horses being beaten. Something about night raids. Emperor Yongchang. How to eat this meal? Empress Zhen 11 looked at the emperor's expression and said with great worry, "Today's thieves are really too bold. There were some who made trouble in the streets, and then there were those who broke into the army at night. Fortunately, the third prince and the fifth prince are safe." Emperor Yongchang glanced at the queen calmly. "The people outside are spreading rumors that this night attack was carried out by Lao San in order to kill Lao Wu. The queen has never been seen favoring Lao San before. Third, why is it so strange today?" Empress Zhen 11 slightly raised her lips. "Chen concubine and concubine, you have never gotten along well. It's all Chen concubine's fault. In recent years, I have not been able to get sister Yu to accept concubine Chen, but concubine Chen, you know, since the emperor has given this harem to me, he trusts me. If this is the case, how can I cause trouble to the emperor?" This seems to be a question but not an answer, but in fact the queen has already answered thoroughly. Regarding concubine Yu's virtue of protecting her son like a ball of ice, not to mention that I dare not take the initiative to get involved, I am the only one who really she was willing to take sides, and she might be twisted by concubine Yu. But it's different now. After all, the third prince's child was raised by my concubine. Although he has a bad temper with the fifth prince, he is an upright man and cares about his siblings. He has gotten along well with all the princes in the palace these years. Concubine, I don't believe that the fifth prince can do such things as harm his brothers, and I don't want to be slandered like this by outsiders. Emperor Yongchang was silent as he listened to these words, his eyes fixed on the queen, as if he wanted to see how true or false the queen's words were. It's just the emperor's little calculation, but it can't escape the eyes of Queen Zhen 11. Old scumbag, don't you want to be sincere? I will let you see what sincerity is. Under the gaze of Emperor Yongchang, Queen Zhengxi's eyes were a little red, but she suppressed the flushing and pressed it down. She looked very similar. She was obviously worried, but she was afraid of the emperor. I misunderstood that she was acting out when the situation happened, but she always wanted to maintain a normal appearance. Fenji Palace fell into silence for a while. It was Lily standing at the door who saw this and quickly sent out all the palace servants serving in the palace. I don't know how long it took before Emperor Yongchang spoke again. Concubine Yu is still too young and always likes to play with the temper of a child. The queen is tall, so she should be given some mercy. However, the queen is good to the third prince. You, the noble concubine, will always understand one day. Queen Zhengxi. Your family can still be called children if they are over 30 years old. Empress Zhen 11 now had no time to care about the big baby in the emperor's heart. She sighed softly and said, what the emperor said is, in fact, it doesn't matter even if sister Yu never understands me, as long as the children are good to me, I will be satisfied. Emperor Yongchang nodded. The soldiers and horses division was invaded at night. Speaking of this matter, the third child was also innocent and implicated. Now that he is misunderstood by the people, it is indeed unjust. Damn old scumbag, just say that you are partial, talk about innocence and injustice, and what kind of virtue your own son is. Don't you have any idea in your heart? Empress Zhen 11 really felt sick to death when she saw the emperor's angry old face, but she still smiled and said, what the emperor said is that the kid of the third prince can't do it. The matter of killing brothers and sisters is still brewing in the public opinion in the main city. I am afraid that I cannot explain this matter. Then I will ask people to go door to door to explain, Emperor Yongchang said angrily. I know that the emperor loves his son very much, but now the people are angry. At this time, the emperor sends someone to come forward. If the people misunderstand his hard work again, then the gain will really outweigh the loss. Emperor Yongchang glanced at the queen and then fell silent. Empress Zhen 11 snorted coldly in her heart. Sure enough, for jealous and selfish people, once their own interests are involved, they can abandon their sons and wives. Emperor Yongchang has always valued his status in the hearts of the people. If this matter really affects his reputation, he naturally does not want it, but he cannot leave Lao San alone. I have a solution, Queen Zhen 11 suddenly said. Emperor Yongchang did not have any doubts this time and said directly, let's listen to what the queen has to say. Since the incident happened because of the fifth prince, I thought that the person who tied the bell must untie it. As long as the people know that the third prince actually cares about the fifth prince, the public opinion in the main city will naturally dissipate. So what the queen means is, I feel that since the army and horses division was invaded at night, it is not appropriate to leave the fifth prince in the army and horses division. It would be better to let the third prince take this opportunity to personally deliver the fifth prince to the palace. As long as the common people send the fifth prince's seeing kindness in my eyes, I thought that the people would understand the innocence and painstaking efforts of the fifth prince. Emperor Yongchang was stunned when he heard the queen's words, but did not immediately agree. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 826. Chapter 826. Can this be said? It is a rule set by the ancestors for adult princes to live outside the palace. Emperor Yongchang did not want anything to happen to the third prince, but he did not want to break the rules of his ancestors. Otherwise, how would he face the people in the ancestral temple when it was time to worship his ancestors? Ancestors. Queen Jingzi. She sighed again. Why was she so blind that she fell in love with such a thing? Looking at the emperor's hesitant look, Queen Jingzi was so disgusted that she almost vomited out her overnight meal. Oh, I want to protect the third prince, but I don't want to take any responsibility or risk. Is there a father like you? Why don't you go to heaven? Although it is against the rules for the fifth prince to stay in the palace, the fact that the fifth prince is still in a coma does not break the ancestors' rules. I know that the emperor is filial and unwilling to do anything that goes against the great ancestor. The emperor's painstaking efforts, I know this in my heart. How about I recommend myself and let the fifth prince live in my Fenji palace after entering the palace? To put it bluntly, if you have me standing in front of you, even if your ancestors settle the accounts in the middle of the night, they are still looking for me. Emperor Yongchang's complexion improved a lot. This will be a hard work for the queen. Empress Zhen 11 smiled tenderly. I am the emperor's wife, and it is my duty to share the emperor's worries. Emperor Yongchang was satisfied and sat with the queen for a while before getting up and leaving to announce the decree. As soon as the emperor left, Queen Jingzi quickly called Lily over. Go and get me a cup of tea. She was really afraid that she would spit it out if she didn't take a sip of tea and press it down. Seeing this, Lily quickly handed over the teacup that had already been warmed. My queen, please be patient. Empress Zhen 11 drank all the tea in the teacup in one breath, and then exhaled a long breath. To be honest, sometimes I really admire concubine you. Lily. Where do you start talking about this? In the face of such an extremely hypocritical and extremely selfish man, she can still act like a little bird and be flattered all day long. She has been fawning over him for 10 years. Not to mention whether she is tired of it or not, she herself is not disgusted. It's really not easy. Lily was shocked. Oh my God, can I say this? Empress Zhen 11 didn't care about Lily's shocked face. She finally felt happy after saying the words. As for concubine Yu, even if she tried her best this time, it still wouldn't work. The emperor's decree came very quickly. Before Bailey Rongs left the palace, he received an oral order from Bai Tu, ordering Bailey Rongs to personally the fifth prince into the palace for recuperation. Bailey Rongs knelt on the ground and felt his eyes going dark. Let Lao Wu walk out of the army and horses division alive, which was originally a fact that he could not accept, but now he is willing to let him personally. It's unacceptable even to individuals. But regardless of whether Bailey Rongs accepts it or not, the emperor's oral edict is there. Bailey Rongs knows that it is not something he can compete with. Moreover, if he wants to quell the people's criticism now, he really needs to go there in person. At noon that day, Bailey Rongs personally escorted the fifth prince lying in the carriage out of the army and horses department on horseback. There were people from the army and horses department in front, left and behind to clear the way. It was simply a spectacle. Miss, these three princes are really capable of doing things. Ning Han, standing in the crowd, muttered, thinking that there was no such pomp when Donglin came to visit. Fan Qinjiao looked coldly at Bailey Rongs, who was riding on horseback, and smiled coldly. If this is not the case, how can we quell the abuses of the people? Bailey Rongs is like this, he calculates and maximizes all things that are beneficial to him. Soon, the curses from the people gradually dissipated. Some people even felt that they had misunderstood the third prince, so they began to speak to the third prince in the crowd, and even thought of the third prince's kindness. Listening to the voices praising the third prince, Ningan frowned and tried to reason with the people. The third prince was just showing off. Could it be that these people really couldn't see it? Fan Kinjao took Ningan's hand and shook his head gently. Is Bailey Wrongs really happy when he gets praise from the people? How can it be? Fan Kinjao was right. Bailey Wrongs really wanted to change the people's attitude towards him by sending the fifth prince back to the palace, but now no matter how much the people praised him, he couldn't be happy, or in other words, whenever he thought of sending the fifth prince away with his own hands, he felt depressed and his heart ached. As the fifth prince was sent to Fenji Palace, it was not only Bailey Wrongs who felt heartache, but also concubine Yu. Bailey Wrongs knew full well what Yunyu did to the fifth prince. Couldn't it be that concubine Yu didn't know it too? It is naturally clear. So when the fifth prince moved into Fenji Palace, concubine Yu came to the house under the guise of visiting the fifth prince. Unfortunately, as soon as she entered the courtyard, she was stopped by Lily. The queen has a destiny, and the fifth prince needs to rest, but concubine Yu, please rest assured that I will definitely bring concubine Yu's thoughts to the queen. Lily stood in front of concubine Yu calmly, with a smile on her face and a respectful attitude. Can't find any fault at all. But the more this happened, the more concubine Yu could not swallow this breath. Now even a slave from Fenji Palace dares to be arrogant in front of her? Who are you to dare to block the way of this palace? Concubine Yu walked around Lily and was about to go inside. Lily stepped forward again and blocked concubine Yu's way. When the fifth prince was sent in, my servant looked not very good. At this time, concubine Yu had better avoid suspicion. When I do things in the palace, I need you as a slave to give me instructions for verification. Are the people in Fenji Palace so unruly now? Since the queen is kind-hearted and not cruel in teaching, I will help the queen to control you unruly slaves. Following concubine Yu's angry scolding, Aunt Ying immediately took a few steps forward with a few old ladies. But before Grandma Ying could take action, she heard a cold snort. Concubine Yu is really angry. When did I, concubine Yu, need to worry about the big and small matters in Fenji Palace? Mammy Ying's raised hand stopped in mid-air, and looking up, she saw Queen Zhen 11 walking towards the side step by step with Yan Qian's support. If she were the former empress, Aunt Ying would naturally not take her seriously, but she has suffered too much at the hands of the empress during this period. Now even Aunt Ying does not dare to make a mistake, and quickly knelt down to say hello. The old slave pays his respects to the queen. When other old ladies saw this, they also knelt down to say hello. Concubine Yu looked at the people beside her kneeling on the ground, and her heart ached even more. The queen came at the right time. I was just worried about the fifth prince and wanted to visit him, but the servants of Fenji Palace blocked him in every possible way. Even if the queen is the lord of the sixth palace, she can't be so monopolistic, right? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 827. Chapter 827. What's the use of light sorrow? When the fifth prince was sent in, his expression was very ugly. The fifth prince's body has always been taken care of by the crown princess. It is not easy for me to decide what is going on with the fifth prince. However, I also sent someone to inform the crown prince. Entering the palace, if concubine Yu really cares about the fifth prince's health, she doesn't need to mobilize so many people. Wouldn't she know everything just by asking the third prince? If the Bingma division hadn't been broken into last night, how would there have been any follow-up to these things? In the final analysis, it's not that your own son has failed to live up to expectations. Now he comes to me and yells in front of me. Do you really think that I can pamper you like your son and daughter? Empress Zhen 11's words seemed gentle, but in fact she was simply pressing concubine Yu's face to the ground. In fact, When concubine Yu learned about the incident in the Bingma division, it was not that she had not complained and blamed the third prince. If he had been a little more attentive, how could others have taken advantage of him? But it's one thing for her to blame her, and it's another thing for others to accuse her. Is the empress blaming the fifth prince? Concubine Yu snorted coldly. Even the emperor didn't say anything about this matter, so it's not your turn as a queen to criticize him. Hey, the emperor was moved out so quickly. Queen Zhen 11 smiled faintly. I am just discussing the matter, so why should concubine Yu worry too much? As for why the Bingma division got into trouble, I believe that justice is in the heart of the people. After hearing this, imperial concubine Yu could no longer suppress the anger in her eyes. I came to see the fifth prince out of kindness, and it was okay for the empress to block her. Now, in order to favor a slave who doesn't know how to behave, she doesn't hesitate to target her. Fifth prince, I dare to ask the queen, is it that the fifth prince cannot see people, or does the queen not want the fifth prince to see people? Lily was frightened when she heard this. Concubine Yu is concubine Yu. Every word she speaks will drive people to death. As long as the queen empress says something that is not thorough, concubine Yu will be caught in the conversation. Empress Zhen 11 had a hint of sadness on her eyebrows. She looked at concubine Yu as if she were an unreasonable child. I have said this sentence countless times that the fifth prince needs to cultivate himself. Concubine Yu didn't pay attention to it. The prince was sent to Fenji Palace on my own initiative, but without the emperor's consent, I would not dare to make my own decision. Since the emperor believes in me, I cannot let him down. The emperor is your man, yes, but he is also my husband. You can move the emperor out, but can't I? Empress Zhen 11 used to be most embarrassed by the emperor's harem where new faces were always joining, but now even she is used to it. After you carry it, I will carry it again to see who can overcome the water. Since he is everyone's man, let's take turns. Concubine Yu has been dealing with the queen for so many years, and the queen has always been in a lower position. Now she has become so smooth and like a loach. Concubine Yu was a little frightened for a while, and she didn't know how to start. Moreover, concubine Yu knew very well that even if the emperor did not blame his son for the affairs of the military and horse department, he would still complain to some extent in his heart. Now that the queen had moved out, concubine Yu naturally understood that she would bring trouble in front of the emperor at this time. She can't get any benefits. Thinking like this, concubine Yu could only retreat in order to advance, and left Fenji Palace with Nanny Ying in a swaggering manner. It's just that concubine Yu couldn't swallow this tone. It happened that Yunyu was in Yuyu Palace, and concubine Yu, who was full of dissatisfaction, simply took out all her anger on Yunyu. What can Yunyu say in the face of her furious mother-in-law? Can't say anything. The mother-in-law has always been partial to Bailey wrongs, and she has known this since Yunyu can remember. When she was a child, in order to gain the approval of her mother and concubine, she had always worked hard to be sensible and responsible, but no matter what, she was not worth mentioning in the eyes of her mother and concubine. Later on, Yunyu gradually understood that no matter how hard she fought, it was useless, because in the mother's heart, Bailey Wrongs was the one who could give her hope. I heard that the sixth prince of Donglan Kingdom sent someone to look for you again today. I am not forcing you to marry her, but your father still values Donglan very much. During this period, the sixth prince of Donglan Kingdom will also now, you should have more contact with others. Yunyu couldn't believe it. Concubine, do you want me to please that fool? I'm just a friend. Why are you so hard to hear when it comes to your mouth? It's rare that the sixth prince of Donglan Kingdom has feelings for you. You should take advantage of it, of course. Concubine Yu doesn't want her daughter to have anything to do with a fool. But there is nothing we can do about it, because that fool is the prince of Donglan Kingdom, and the emperor wants to have a close relationship with Donglan. Now it is still unclear whether the fifth prince is dead or alive. You should establish a good relationship with the 6th prince of Donglan Kingdom in advance. In this way, even if the 5th prince wakes up and bites you and Zeer, your father will only care about Donglan. Linguo's face will turn a blind eye. When it comes to the 5th prince, doesn't concubine you feel worried? But what's the use of just being worried? It is hard to think of countermeasures in advance. The 5th emperor's brother's poison was administered by Chen himself, and he also went to test the crown princess's words. The crown princess did not know about the 5th emperor's brother's poison. Although it was still short of the dose of a medicine, as long as 5 the poison in the emperor's brother's body cannot be discharged in time. When the poison completely penetrates into the bone marrow, even if the person cannot die, he will never wake up. Speaking of poison, Yunyu is still very confident. Concubine Yu frowned and said, "What I'm talking about is just in case. There are always variables before everything comes to the end. I taught you this when you were young, why don't you remember it? But nothing to worry about, just do as I say." Facing the tyranny of her mother and concubine, Yunyu felt aggrieved and had no choice but to walk out of Yueyu Palace silently. However, Yunyu would never go to the 6th prince of Donglan Kingdom. He would be a fool and even give her not even suitable for carrying shoes. Yunyu suddenly felt so sad. There was no place for her in such a big palace. After thinking about it, Yunyu simply left the palace in a carriage. It was Bailey Rongs who was in the Bingma division with a depressed look on his face. When he saw Yunyu entering the door, a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes, and then he asked impatiently, "What are you doing here?" Yunyu had just suffered a humiliation from concubine Yu, and now that she saw her brother's attitude, her face naturally didn't look any better. "Of course I came here to ask you about the incident involving the soldiers and horses being invaded at night. How's your check going?" Bailey Rongs was only concerned about being upset, and had long forgotten the investigation into the back of his mind. Now that Yunyu pointed it out to his face became a little worried. "I told you to poison him directly at the beginning, but you have always they say it's better to be careful, but now that an accident has occurred, don't you have any responsibility at all?" End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 828. Chapter 828. Fan Kinjao should not be underestimated. Anyway, the 5th prince was going to die sooner or later. If Bailey Rongs had followed Bailey Rongs' idea, he should have poisoned him directly. As a result, it turned out to be like this. As long as he thought that the 5th prince might unfold at any time in Fenji Palace, Bailey Rongs felt restless. Yunyu was unreasonably accused by her younger brother and was filled with anger. But she knew better that quarreling would not do any good to their current situation. Suppressing the anger in her heart, Yunyu said, "The crown princess's medical skills should not be underestimated. If the dose is too high, I am afraid that the flaws will be exposed. If the crown princess catches something, even if the 5th prince is really dead, do you think we can hide it?" Yunyu also didn't expect that Fan Kinjao's medical skills were so good. That's why she has to be more cautious when doing things. Seeing Bailey Rongs' silence, Yunyu paused and continued, "I have tested the crown princess this time, and the crown princess probably did not notice the 5th prince's poisoning. As long as the crown princess did not notice it, others would not notice it. Come on, it doesn't matter if the 5th prince is in Fenji Palace now, as long as we seize the opportunity, we will always think of a way to do it." Bailey Rongs listened to Yunyu's persuasion and gradually regained his sense. "Sister Huang is right, I was reckless." Yunyu saw that Bailey Rongs softened his voice, and then she expressed her doubts. "Do you think Fan Kinjao was responsible for this incident?" Even in the last test, Yunyu didn't find any clues about Fan Kinjao, but it was such a coincidence that the Bingma division was broken into at night. How could something happen just after she poisoned the 5th prince? Already. Fan Kinjao is a little clever, but in the final analysis, she is just a woman. She doesn't have the guts to plan such a big thing as breaking into the Army and Horses Division at night. Bailey Wrong smiled sarcastically. Fan Swinning was also very smart, but once something big happens, her methods will not be on display. Don't confuse the crown princess with the people in your backyard. Do you think everyone is as useless as the people in your mansion? Yunya could tell Bailey Wrong's thoughts at a glance, although she was not there during this time. The main city, but judging from the results, Fan Kinjao did not become the third prince's concubine but the crown princess on the spot, which is enough to show that Fan Kinjao has great powers that she doesn't know yet. Bailey Wrongs. I want to retort, but I can't open my mouth at all. Because he knew very well in his heart that Fan Kinjao was the existence he had always wanted. Seeing this, Yunyu sneered, just know it yourself. Regardless of whether this matter has anything to do with the crown princess, we must be more careful when doing things in the future. Now that we have finally gained the trust of our father, we must not let the crown prince do it again. Take back the initiative. Bailey Wrongs nodded. He naturally understood this truth. Ever since he was a child, there has never been an enemy in his eyes. Even his mother-in-law has told him more than once that the word prince is just a temporary loan, and it will be returned to him in the end. So he took it lightly, so much so that he was almost crushed by the prince some time ago. This opportunity was hard won, and Bailey Wrongs naturally could not give the prince any room to turn around. That afternoon, he cheered up and directly called his staff to the Soldiers and Horses Division to secretly discuss the next countermeasures. After all, it seems to him that no place is safer than the Bingma Division. Now it is certain that the fifth prince will enter Fenji Palace. Unless the empress will be harmful to the fifth prince, no one can try to pluck the fifth prince out of Fenji Palace. Bailey Wrongs knew that it was simply impossible to get evidence against the Queen Empress against the fifth prince. In this case, it is better to go with the flow and leave a good reputation for yourself first. Bailey Wrongs went to the fifth prince's mansion in person. In the name of the servants of the fifth prince's mansion for their service in guarding the mansion, he rewarded all the servants with 3 months' monthly money. Then he used his own money to collect money for the fifth prince in the main city. A lot of valuable medicinal materials. Under the leadership of Bailey Wrongs, the ministers in the court no longer pretended to be deaf and dumb, and took the initiative to pool their share of the money, and also bought a lot of supplements for the fifth prince. As a result, Bailey Wrongs' reputation for being kind and righteous was completely destroyed. Piles of medicinal materials and supplements were about to block the door of Fenji Palace. Fan Kinjao, who had just finished treating the fifth prince, felt sick in his heart when he saw this situation. Although Bailey Wrongs spent real money, his reputation was really bought. While money can be earned again, it is not that simple to win the hearts and minds of the people. Bailey Wrongs was just like in the previous life, never giving up any opportunity to improve himself. When Queen Zhen 11 saw Fan Kinjao coming over, she hurriedly waved and said, "Why bother yourself by looking at those things? They are just some flashy things. They say they are for Lao Wu's health, but in fact they are just for some people's faces. It's just a gold-plated prop." Fan Kinjao walked up to the queen with a smile. The queen is right, but now as long as the fifth prince is brought out of the army and horse division, we will win. How is Lao Wu's health? Queen Zhen 11 asked softly. Fan Kinjao saw that there was no one else in the palace except Lily, and then he said truthfully, the original toxins have been almost eliminated. Although the subsequent doses of Yunyuixia are not much, the fifth prince's body is very weak. Even if he cultivates carefully, it will still take some time. Queen Zhen 11 nodded. It's good that people can still wake up, but this time we snatched Lao Wu away, and those with guilty consciences will definitely not let it go. Fan Kinjao actually thought of this. The third prince is so eager to win the hearts of the people this time, and it seems that he is a little too hasty. I think what the mother said is right, the third prince may have new plans. Bailey Wrongs suffered a loss this time because of the people's hearts and voices. Although Bailey Wrongs was cunning, he was still smart and would never make the same mistake twice. Judging from Fan Kinjao's understanding of him, Bailey Wrongs is so eager to gain the people's trust now that he is afraid that his next actions will be even more ruthless. Queen Zhen 11 always felt that the third prince wanted to win the hearts and minds of the people, and his purpose was by no means just targeting the fifth prince. However, the third prince had not made any small moves yet, and she could not easily assert that. Now that the prince was not in the main city, it was even more difficult for them. Without an arm, they have to be even more careful. You can only take one step at a time. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 829. Chapter 829 MRSU's visit. The summer weather has entered, and the weather is so hot that it makes people feel anxious. There was no movement from Bailey Wrongs. Instead, Pan Yulo sent a message to Fan Kinjao. When Fan Kinjao received the post, he was really surprised. Did the person who sent the post say anything else? Suyan shook his head. The clothes-fitting girl next to the three princes came, only to say that the three princes missed during the illness, so they wanted to ask the prince to come to sit on the door. These words sounded high-sounding, but Fan Kinjao didn't believe a word of it. She and Pan Yulu didn't have such a deep friendship yet. Moreover, Pan Yulu was very shameless. She thought that her child had been lost in Fan Swinning's hands, but she was unwilling to show the slightest pity in front of outsiders. How could she be willing to let people see her frailty when she was sick? What about the unbearable appearance? Fan Kinjao looked down at the post in his hand again and frowned even more. When Pan Yulu was a girl, she was famous in the main city for her good calligraphy. Fan Kinjao had seen people copying Pan Yulu's calligraphy more than once on the street, so he was very sure that this post should have been written by Pan Yulu himself. But this is what makes it even more puzzling. Jaomen Mansion, there are countless posts sent out every year. How can the master do it himself? Furthermore, now Pan Yulu is the third prince's concubine after all. If outsiders find out about doing these vulgar jobs, all she has to do is make fun of her for demeaning her status. But Pan Yulu not only actually wrote it, but also sent a personal maid to deliver it. Fan Kinjao flicked the post in his hand and felt that something was wrong. Ningguang suddenly lifted the curtain and entered the door. "Miss, the Yu family is here." Fan Kinjao was stunned. "Do you know who is coming?" "I heard from Brother Fan that the eldest lady of the Yu family and the young master of the Yu family are here." When the servant came to report, he saw the Yu family being invited to the main hall. Ningguang thought about the Yu family's behavior. He frowned in disgust at the pomp and circumstance. Where is the person who comes to someone else's house as a guest and would like to bring all the servants over? Should we be a guest or a demonstration? Fan Kinjao knew very well that the Yu family was definitely not just a guest. She was the queen's daughter-in-law, and the Yu family was concubine Yu's natal family. It would be strange if the two families could really sit together and chat. "But why you come here? You have to go and see it to find out." Fan Kinjao ordered Ningguang, "Go ahead and keep an eye on it, and report back in time if there is any disturbance." Ningguang nodded, turned around and ran out of the yard. At this time, the main hall was busy. Tao Yuxian heard that the eldest wife of the Yu family was coming with her son. With the support of Aunt He, she quickly came out to greet them. The two met and exchanged a few polite words, and Tao Yuxian politely introduced the Yu family. The eldest lady sat on the main seat. In terms of seniority, although the eldest wife of the Yu family is the eldest daughter-in-law of the Yu family, she is not as good as Tao Yuxian in terms of age. In addition, she is a guest. How can anyone really sit at the head of the family? But the eldest lady of the Yu family really just sat on it, carried her son to the chair next to her, and directly occupied the deputy seat next to him. Looking at MRSU's arrogance, Grandma he frowned subconsciously. What on earth did the Yu family want to do with such arrogance? The eldest lady of the Yu family saw Tao Yuxian standing there and didn't move, so she took the initiative to smile and said, "The old lady of the Hua family is standing like this. How can I, a junior, sit down securely? Or should my brother Sen take over the old lady of the Hua family's position?" Of course Tao Yuxian could not fight for a seat with a child. Once word got out about this, no one would say anything wrong with the child, only that the adult was small. Moreover, even if the eldest wife of the Yu family really picks up the child, it will only be a deputy seat. Once Tao Yuxian sits on it, wouldn't it be obvious that he is inferior? And he really couldn't stand listening anymore. The eldest lady of the Yu family is really humble. The eldest lady of the Yu family looked at Tao Yuxian with a half smile and said, "In front of the master, verify that the slaves have the right to speak. Some old slaves rely on their seniority and are almost lawless in the house. Such slaves should directly beat him to death as a warning to others, right, Madame Hua?" And she finally saw that the eldest lady of the Yu family was not a guest at all. Tao Yuxian, however, did not show any signs of anger. He smiled and sat a little far away from the eldest wife of the Yu family. "That's what I say, but in this world, it's not just slaves who can't tell the difference between eyebrows and eyebrows. Some people dress brightly, but in fact they are just like slaves. Not as sensible as the beggar on Temple Street. At least if you give him money, the beggar on Temple Street will say thank you." The smile on MRSU's face froze. "MRS Hua, are you accusing me of not knowing the rules?" Tao Yuxian smiled faintly and said, "What the MRSU family said is a bit harsh. I am just talking about a phenomenon. Why should the MRSU family worry about it? The eldest lady of the Yu family has long heard that this old lady of the Hua family is not an ordinary character. She didn't expect that she is really powerful when she saw her today. She has a smile on her face but can speak like a razor. Most importantly, she is so smooth that people can't stand it. Can't find any clue. I'm here today mainly because I heard that the little grandson of the Hua family is going to be a reading companion for brother Jia Senator. Speaking of which, my brother Sen has not met the little grandson of the Hua family yet, so he thought of coming over first to have a look." The eldest son of the Yu family, seeing that she had not taken advantage, the madam simply got straight to the point. Tao Yuxian looked at the youngest son of MRSU's family. He was only 2 years old, but his little face was very tight. There was no smile at all. Instead, he had a frown on his face with a dissatisfied look on his face. "I think my brother Ren is taking a nap right now. The eldest lady of the Yu family knows about it. How can a child grow taller if he doesn't sleep?" Tao Yuxian had seen all kinds of people, and he could tell the eldest lady of the Yu family at a glance. His youngest son is not easy to get along with, so he will not let his grandson show up. Even if he has to enter the palace as a companion, it will only happen after he is 5 years old. By that time, brother Ren will at least be more sensible. Although maybe at that time, brother Ren will still not be able to get any advantage in front of the son of the eldest wife of the Yu family. But now if the two children meet, the one who will be bullied will definitely be brother Ren. My mother said that only losers will eat and sleep all day long, and live like a pig at a young age. Such a person is not worthy of being my companion." Before the eldest lady of the Yu family could speak, the young master of the Yu family scolded him with contempt. Hearing this, Tao Yuxian thought to herself that as the Yu family raised their children like this, she couldn't let brother Ren meet him in advance. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 830. Chapter 830. Rengir was beaten. MRS Hua family, don't mind, the child is young and immature. MRSU family said this, but she did not mean to blame her son. The young master of the Yu family is really high-spirited, but whose child has never been a sleepover? Even if the eldest wife of the Yu family wants to teach her children to make progress, she can't lie. Could it be that the young master of the Yu family has been sleeping since he was a child? Do you have to study hard and make progress when you are still in your mother's womb? Of course Tao Yuxian would not care about a child, but isn't MRSU still sitting here? The eldest wife of the Yu family was choked. She wanted to say something, but she couldn't find a reason to refute it. It was human nature for children to sleep since childhood. Even if she was eloquent, she could still tell lies with her eyes open. Seeing this, Tao Yuxian didn't want to waste any more time on MRSU's family, but before he could say goodbye to the guests, a pair of figures walked in. It turned out that Brother Ren missed his great-grandmother when he woke up, and Wu Qiuzao was too upset by the fuss, so he hurriedly carried his son to the main hall. Iffies. Brother Ren, who couldn't even speak, hummed and stretched out his chubby little arms as soon as he saw Tao Yuxian, obviously wanting to hug him. Tao Yuxian looked at Brother Ren, but his eyes darkened. Wu Qiuzao noticed that there was something wrong with his grandmother's expression, and also knew that he had come at the wrong time, so he hurriedly said, "My granddaughter-in-law didn't know that the old lady had guests here. It's my granddaughter-in-law who was reckless," Wu Qiuzao said, and was about to leave with Brother Ren in his arms. The eldest lady of the Yu family quickly stood up and blocked Wu Qiuzao's path. She looked at Brother Ren and said, "This is the young master of the Hua family. He looks really decent." After hearing this, Wu Qiuzao looked at Tao Yuxian. Tao Yuxian knew that the eldest lady of the Yu family was here today for Brother Ren. Since he was bumped into, Brother Ren was afraid that it would be difficult to escape easily, so he introduced her, "From the Fengning family, this is the eldest lady of the Yu family." As soon as Wu Qiuzao heard that it was the Yu family, his pupils trembled. "I have met the eldest lady of the Yu family," Wu Qiuzao said reluctantly. Although she did not blame her sister-in-law for sending Brother Ren to be a companion, it did not mean that she accepted the Yu family. The eldest lady of the Yu family seemed not to notice the displeasure in Wu Qiuzao's eyes. She looked at the confused Rengear and said with a smile, "This child looks really cute. Take a closer look at me. It can be regarded as a check in advance for our brother senator." As the eldest lady of the Yu family said, she was about to take the child away from Wu Qiuzhao's arms. Wu Qiuzhao had always rejected the Yu family, so naturally he would not let go easily. Madame Yu's family did not expect Wu Qiuzhao to be like this. Without knowing what was good, he stretched out his hand and pinched Rengear's arm hard. "It's just a slave for her son, what's so precious about it?" Although Rengear was not raised with a lot of money, he grew up in the love of the Hua family. Now he was pinched hard by MRSU's family, which made him cry out in pain. "Wow wow wow, wow wow wow." Wu Qiuzao didn't see MRSU's understanding. When she saw her son crying, she just thought he was frightened. She hugged him tightly and avoided MRSU's coaxing gently, "Brother Ren, don't cry, my mother is here." Seeing this, the eldest lady of the Yu family looked at Tao Yuxian. "I heard that the young master of the Hua family was willing to be my brother Sen's companion. It was the Hua family themselves who asked the emperor for it? I thought the Hua family was full of sincerity. Is this the Hua family's attitude now?" When Tao Yuxian saw his grandson crying, how could he not feel distressed? Seeing that the eldest wife of the Yu family dared to shout in front of her, she immediately snorted and said, "It is the decision of the elders of the Hua family to let Brother Ren be his companion." How old is Brother Ren? How can he understand these principles? The eldest wife of the Yu family is so fussy with a child who doesn't understand words. Isn't this the Yu family's family tradition? Facing Tao Yuxian's rhetorical question, Madame Yu was stunned. She really didn't expect that she, who had always taken advantage of her sisters-in-law, would be defeated one after another at the hands of an old immortal today. Tao Yuxian didn't have time to look at MRSU's face, so she quickly stood up and walked to Wu Qiuzhou, and carefully took the wailing brother Ren from Wu Qiuzhou's arms. He was a small person with a face turned into carrot skin from crying, which made people feel distressed just looking at him. Seeing that it was his grandmother coming, Wu Qiuzhou also let down his guard and handed Ren Geer over. Unexpectedly, MRSU's youngest son, who had been sitting aside, suddenly rushed over and bumped into Tao Yuxian. Tao Yuxian was unable to dodge and was knocked to the side. His body instantly fell backward. Old lady, and he was so frightened that she hurriedly ran over. Grandma, Wu Qiuzhou was close and rushed over to catch the person. In fact, if Tao Yuxian reached out to Wu Qiuzhou at this time, he would be able to stand firmly, but in this case, Brother Ren would be in danger of falling to the ground. Concerned about the child, Tao Yuxian simply gritted his teeth and tilted his body, falling heavily onto the chair behind him. The hard handle touched Tao Yuxian's waist, causing Tao Yuxian to gasp in pain. "How are you, old lady? Grandma, are you injured anywhere?" Seeing this, Grandma He and Wu Qiuzhou ran towards Tao Yuxian. Unexpectedly, the youngest son of the eldest wife of the Yu family seemed to be upset and ran towards Tao Yuxian again. Before he and Wu Qiuzhou, he stood in front of Tao Yuxian, raised his arm and slapped him on Brother Ren's still immature face. Snap dash. Everything happened so suddenly that no one could react. Brother Ren was stunned by the beating, and it took a long time before he began to cry even more heartbreakingly. "Cry, cry, cry, useless trash, how can a piece of trash like you deserve to be my companion?" Not only did the youngest son of MRSU's family not show any regret, but he scolded him with a condescending look on his face. Wu Qiuzhou couldn't bear it anymore. He turned around and looked at the Yu family's eldest wife and said, "Bullying the weak with the strong, using the big to bully the small. Is this how the Yu family raises their children?" MRSU's wife didn't expect her son to be able to take action, but the Hua family didn't know what was going on. If Wu Qiuzhou had shown the child to her early in the morning, there would have been so many things that happened later. In the final analysis, the young master of the Hua family doesn't understand the rules. We, Brother Sen, have always been taught harshly, so we can't stand people who have no family education. Instead of yelling and screaming here when we have time, why don't we, the young master of the Hua family, if you take more time to teach your children how to behave, you won't continue to embarrass your Hua family in the future. Wu Qiuzhou was so angry that he didn't know what to say. Tao Yuxian also couldn't bear to listen to MRSU's words, but at the moment her waist hurt like needles, and she was sweating even when she took a breath, let alone talking. End of this chapter.